Hi everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and for those who may be new to the show tonight, if you would please subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it, and don't forget to give the show a like. My guest tonight is E.A.KOETTIng, author. He is a black magic occultist, and he is the author of 8 books. His website is becomealiving.god.com. And that was my reason for having Eric on the show tonight. So everyone, with that, let's welcome Eric to the show. Hey Eric, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
No, thank you for having me. It's always an honor to be able to talk to really to talk to anybody about the subject that's most interesting to me, which really is human evolution that's pushed through what I call black magic.
Eric, you say that you have the secrets of godlike power, rituals that will awaken your clairvoyance for spirit communication, and that is the most powerful occult movement in the world. Become a living God. Can you please explain that to the viewers, and what does it mean, becoming a living God?
Yeah, well, first of all, the statement "become" itself is very important, because it's a process, a continual process of self-evolution. That by no means is it a statement of "I am a living God." And I think if we look at the term God itself, that's really the highest aspiration, to be limitless, and that being the goal. Really, at any point, if you've reached that goal and you can say, indeed, I am God, well, you're really not, because that means that you've hit a cap, that you've extended your capability of evolution. And so this is really a process of continual evolution towards limitlessness, and a continually evolving understanding of what limitlessness itself is. Through the methods that I teach through Become a Living God, as well as my books and all of the other things that I do, I teach people how to use ancient technologies to unlock parts of themselves, not just parts of their brain or their psyche, but parts of their whole being that some people may not even know have existed within them at all. And this allows for really what I've termed the 3 godlike powers to develop, which are omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence. And these are all really targeted through very specific rituals and occult practices that you can engage in, you can learn, you can master. And as you master these, you indeed do begin to master those abilities of being able to be anywhere instantly, to have all answers or all knowledge that you need delivered to you instantly, as well as being able to have power to create any change that you want in your life instantly.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about the occult and the black magic. And how is this done? Now, do you summon your demons or guides? Is that the method of magic that you help focus on to get your energy to conduct these spells that you do?
Well, I mean, that's one method, but it's one of many, and it is a very important one. Evocation itself is one of the most important practices that anybody can learn, and this is summoning forth to appearance before you an entity that is not a physical entity. And this can be demons, angels. There are a million different labels for the types of spirits that you can summon forth. This is an extremely important activity, but that's not necessarily where the power is being drawn from. It's actually quite the reverse. That this is one of the lessons or one of the experiences that will help you develop your own power. I mean, the ability to manifest a spirit in front of you in a room that previously did not have that spirit in it, you're changing your observation of reality in a dramatic way, in a way that really should be impossible. Once you're able to do that, then you can really start restructuring your entire reality. And and so evocation itself is a pathway to omnipotence for sure, because once again, as you alter your observation of reality, reality itself begins to change, and evocation is a direct route into that. But that's not where the power is drawn from. That's simply one application of your own godlike power.
Eric, how can you make a spirit manifest? How can you do that?
Wow. I've got a course, my Mastering Evocation training course, that actually teaches exactly that. And what it is that there are steps that you go through to train yourself to be able to view the invisible, to see what's going on astrally and spiritually around you, and then to push that, whatever it is that you're viewing astrally, into physical materialization. And then there are ritual steps as far as having a manifestation base, such as incense, smoke, or sometimes the blood of a living sacrifice.
Wait a minute. The blood of a living sacrifice?
That definitely is a part of ancient traditions and is still practiced today in occultism. And I'm not talking about taking children and tying them to an altar and slaughtering them. That's grotesque and should never be done. But I'm talking about using the blood of an animal that you are then afterwards going to eat, and that becomes, it's your food. You're going to eat chicken. And so you can take that chicken, slaughter it yourself, use the blood as a manifestation base, and then cook the chicken and eat it with your family. But there is a necessity in a lot of cases for some sort of manifestation base that acts as almost a magnetizing base for that spirit to latch onto and to begin to form a body out of. And so in the incense is really, at this point in the evolution of occultism, incense has almost entirely replaced stuff like blood sacrifice in your average magician's kind of workbook, that the spirit is going to materialize in that incense smoke. At the same time, your brain waves are actually dropping quite a bit, and I've actually done a whole study about this that I had in my book, Questing After Visions, about the various brainwave states. And through ritual, you're actually getting into what's called the Theta state, which is the state right before you fall asleep. And so this is a state, as you're falling asleep, you might have these pre-dreams or hypnagogic hallucinations, and this is the point where most people have spontaneous materializations of spirits or odd things that happen. As they're falling asleep, they wake up and say, "What was that noise?" Or they wake up and they see something standing beside their bed. That's because they've fallen into this Theta state, and that is a very magical state. And it's actually scientifically been linked up with gamma state, which once again we're talking about brainwave frequencies. You hit this really low frequency of theta, you hold it there, and theta, the best is about 7.5 hertz, and so you hold your brainwave frequencies at 7.5 hertz, and then what starts happening is your brainwave activity starts shooting off the charts. It starts doing things that it's not capable of doing, despite however much concentration or effort you try to apply to it, through study or focus or anything like that holding these low states triggers these extraordinarily high frequencies. And so this is a tether. I've called it the Theta-gamma sync. And once you engage the Theta-gamma sync, you're actually in both worlds at once. You are observing the astral plane as well as the physical plane as being overlapped. So in that moment, when you perform an evocation, you're seeing the spirit very clearly and having full communication with the spirit. Now, if somebody walks into the room who's not in that state, most of the time they are not going to see a spirit. They're going to see what looks like a lunatic speaking to himself.
Yeah, that was my question. That was my next question to you. Would somebody else see that spirit?
And most of the time not. Sometimes yes. Now what most people will have is a more I think atavistic reaction to the whole operation, where they'll walk in, and even if they don't see the ritual, the feeling that comes over them is usually terror, that they feel like something is occurring that shouldn't be, and then they turn around and walk the other way. And once again, this is regardless of whether or not they're seeing the crazy ritual that's being performed in front of them, that something is triggered within them that tells them something is going on, that it's very odd here. You'll also see animals having very interesting reactions when you're performing evocations. When I perform an evocation in my temple, which is connected to my home, all of the animals, all of the dogs in the neighborhood go crazy. And I've got a border collie, and she runs and hides. She has a specific area that she hides in whenever I do evocation, that I know that after the ritual's over, I know where to go find her. But she's being told by something that's deep inside of her that she needs to find a safe place to go, to get away from whatever it is that I'm summoning forth.
Now, all right, so we have black magic. Now, when you're talking about those blood rituals, to me, I think of voodoo. Is voodoo part of black magic?
Well, yeah, I mean, voodoo is an aspect of black magic. Now, just to lay out some definitions there, a lot of people would assume that, well, black magic would be evil magic, or magic for nefarious ends, or even magic for selfish gain. Now, while all of that can be true, it's not necessarily the whole picture. Black magic is magic without limits. So in the white magic paradigm, that you can only perform magic under certain circumstances. And actually, when you look at the white magic paradigm as a whole, it's completely self-contradictory, because it does assume the existence of a divine being of some sort, and that divine being is perfect. And so therefore, the performance of any magic, which magic by definition would be spiritual force applied to create change in this world, so any performance of any magic at all would thereby be essentially telling the creator or the divine that it's not good enough, and that his creation is imperfect and needs our help, and so therefore it falls into black magic. Black magic steps out of all of those kind of traps of dogma. It steps out of really the religious terminology, and even the religious mindset, and simply opens up this power to be used for whatever you want to use it for. And so black magic is magic without limitation. And Vodun, or Voodoo, is a part of that. I just really released a Voodoo training course that I myself I haven't been initiated into the religion of Voodoo. I've been taught the secret sorcery of Haitian Vodun. And so I've released a video course, just barely, that teaches step by step how to initiate yourself into that same secret sorcery of Haitian Vodun, how to call on these Loa and perform the spells, and really get some pretty amazing results.
I have a picture of you in the desert, voodoo possession experiencing with Loa. Can you what is Loa? Is that a demon?
No, well, I mean, if you were to look at this strictly from a Judeo-Christian mindset, or an Abrahamic mindset, it would be really easy to say that Loa are demons, because any god other than the God of Abraham would be a demon. But if we take each system independently, no, absolutely not. The Loa are intermediaries between God and man. Basically the creation myth of Haitian Vodun, as well as a lot of the Afro-Caribbean religions, is that the creator God created all things, and then in order to basically go do other things with its time, it appointed these Loa, these forces and powers embodied in form on this world, to do certain things, to control certain physical elements, as well as to teach and to help humans in their evolution. And so the Loa are these intermediaries. They have all of the powers of godhood, and they don't have a whole lot of rules that they have to follow. The main rule, the two rules that were laid out to me that these Loa were given at the time of their creation is that they have to keep this whole thing going, that they have to not let physical reality implode on itself. And the second rule is that they have to teach people. That there's something special about humans, and so that they needed to help humans by teaching them. And they fulfill these two obligations pretty well, but often in pretty interesting ways. If you call forth these Loa and you ask them to simply teach you, you might have a hard lesson that they're going to have you learn. You do have to be very specific about what it is you ask them to do and how you ask them to go about it, because they are first and foremost teachers, and so if you just call them up to have them do things for you, they're going to make sure you learn a lesson in the process.
Mm-hmm. Is that connected to the books that you wrote, The Spider and the Green Butterfly?
Yeah. The book I wrote, Spider and Green Butterfly, it basically outlines the basic system of involving yourself in Haitian Voodoo. And once again, I do want to clarify that I'm not talking about the religious Voodoo or Voodoo that's out there that has a whole priest class and is an established religion. I'm talking about once again the secret sorcery that's practiced out in the jungles and the woods and the marshes of Louisiana. At this point, Vodun and Voodoo has spread across the entire world, but I'm talking about the sorcery aspect of it. With any religion, you can look at the religion. Once you remove the dogma, you're actually left with some pretty interesting and powerful spiritual concepts that can be very, very evolutionary in your own being. Even looking at the New Testament, you can look at, once you take the dogma out of it, you can look at the teachings of Jesus, whether this is a real being or an amalgamation of various mystics or whatever it might be, that the teachings in there do teach us some amazing things about harnessing our own power. And you can do this with any religious system, because really this has been magic itself. What we're today calling magic, it has been embedded into every religion and even into a good deal of science at this point. The science is starting to pick up on what sorcerers have been saying for centuries.
Now, with the description under this book, you state that this text is perhaps the most dangerous ever put in print. And why are you saying that? If somebody gets a hold of these books and reads them and starts messing around with them, isn't that really a dangerous thing?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. It is a dangerous thing for people to be armed with knowledge and maybe not armed with wisdom. And
okay, well, you state also that in this book, the rituals unlock doors that cannot be shut. Its symbols, incantations conjure spirits that can never be exorcised, and the whole of your life and being will become a gateway between the worlds.
Right, absolutely. And so, obviously, if somebody is tinkering around with magic and they want to see if they can get a spell to work, this is not for them. This is for those who are diving headfirst into their own evolution. And in the process of doing so, there is a sacrifice of the self, in that you do open doors that maybe you can't control what comes out of them. And actually that's it. One of the philosophies that I've come to understand for myself is that if I am performing a ritual correctly, it should leave me pretty traumatized at the end of it. Because even if you look at physical evolution does not occur in a state of comfort. It occurs in a state of trauma. That there's some sort of applied force that makes you have to adapt to circumstances in order to evolve or change. And so on a personal level, you can look at this in a mundane way, for instance, that you undergo something traumatic or horrible in your life, and you either wither away because of it, or you grow massively because of it. And most people who have achieved amazing things in their lives on any scale, grand or mundane, they'll credit the traumatic things that have happened to them and their ability to overcome those things. Now, magic takes that to a completely different level, that when you engage in sorcery, especially this intensive sorcery, where you're opening these doors and you're engaging with these primal forces, you're going to be traumatized, and you are going to have to deal with it. Once you open those doors, you don't really have a choice but to figure it out and to regain your balance and pick up your life. And it is dangerous. It is absolutely dangerous. But having this knowledge available to everybody is a lot less dangerous than only having it available to the few. And the reason for this is that we can see that this knowledge and power has been sequestered by what some people might call the elite, by the priest class and the ruling class, in order to dominate the rest of the people. And an analogy that I just gave the other day to a friend is it's dangerous to give guns out to children, but it's a lot more dangerous to give guns out to trained mercenaries. Trained mercenaries are actually going to go kill people with these guns. Children are probably going to have some accidents. Please, people, do not go give guns to children. Keep them away from children. But I also think maybe we ought to restrict guns from military as well. Restrict our entire military influence.
But Eric, what is the point then? What is the point of learning this voodoo? What is the point of it? What you can do spells, but are the spells meant to harm people? What are they meant for?
I wrote a book several years ago called Baneful Magic, in which I detailed specifically harmful magic, harmful spells. So spells to cause harm to people, or in some cases to kill people. And I have seen these successfully enacted to their ultimate ends, and it is horrific. That's not something that I would advise anybody to use. Harming another person, or especially taking another person's life through something like magic, is not an easy way of solving the problem. Actually, it's very traumatic to realize that you've done that. But
well, then what would be the repercussions to the person that did this voodoo spell on killing someone?
Well, and voodoo isn't necessarily aimed just at harming or killing someone. It's actually aimed more at gaining knowledge, gaining growth, evolution. The whole idea is self-evolution. That you are taking your own growth as a human being. You're setting the bar as high as you can, becoming a living God. And then you're using all of these forces to help catapult you towards that through both harnessing the powers that you've called, as well as having to deal with the trauma that you've invoked. But now, if you use magic to harm somebody, there is unfortunately a huge misunderstanding in the idea of karma. Most people will say that if you do something evil or negative, that you're going to have 3 times or more come back to you.
Right.
Now that is a complete misunderstanding of the idea of karma. Actually, if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, where the idea of karma first came from, Krishna, the kind of supreme being, is riding alongside Arjuna, who's a warlord about to go to war, and shows Arjuna everything, the entire scope and scale of creation. And Arjuna says, well, after I've seen all this, how can I go forth and kill my own brother? And Krishna, the Supreme Being, says, not only not only do you need to kill your brother and kill these warriors, but you also need to kill every man, woman, and child in this city, and then you need to till the ground with salt so nothing will ever grow there, because if anything survives, they will come back up against your people and they will destroy you. This is what you need to do, and you have to separate your actions from yourself. And this is a big problem that people get into, that you can see this with any kind of addiction cycle or behavioral disorder, that people identify their actions with who they are. Who you are as a supreme being. You are a divine being in a human body having a human experience. That doesn't necessarily mean that your actions dictate who you are. Each person needs to define for themselves their own ethics. For me, I have some ethics that keep me from first harming children. That is one of my primary things. I'm a father, and as a father, I've grown very, very compassionate for children and for suffering of children of any sort. But I've got my own ethics that guide me in my life, and each person needs to kind of determine those. But you're not going to see that karmic repercussion of that you do something bad and then something bad happens to you. If that were true, this would be a completely different world. We can see that bad people do bad things and they get immense gain from it. That they're not punished. Now, you can go ahead and take that another level and say, well, maybe in the next life they're going to be punished even worse. And that's all nothing more than hopeful thinking. What we have is we have right here and right now. Now, not saying that I don't believe in any sort of afterlife, but we can count on what we can see and observe right here and now, and karma doesn't seem to be taking effect. What does happen is natural cause and effect. So, you perform a curse and kill somebody, and then you have to deal with the psychic repercussions of that, being that, oh my God, an entire, not just this person, but their family, and everybody that knows their family is now suffering because of me. Now, unless you're a complete psychopath, that is going to devastate you. If you are a complete psychopath, honestly, these powers aren't going to work very well for psychopaths. That what's required to even perform that sort of spell is actually an intense amount of empathy. And because you do have to connect with your target, whether that's money. You can use magic to get money, and I've done it all the time, and it works really, really well for me. And so I have to be able to create an empathic link to the money that I desire in order to draw it to me.
You mean you've done spells to help you make money, to get money?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God! Oh, come on! Wait a minute! Does that really work?
Yes. Oh, that works. That works really, 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 really well.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh.
No, money magic is actually really, really pretty simple, and most of the time people see that once they start performing these rituals, that money is not an obstacle anymore. I performed a ritual, an evocation of Lucifuge Rofacael, who is supposedly the Grand Minister of Hell, according to the kind of classical demonological experts. That he was Lucifer's scribe. He is the one who shuns the light, and if you call on a demon to make a pact with you, it is Lucifuge Rofacael who will make that pact. Now, I evoked Lucifuge Rofacael about 5 years ago, and I asked him, as part of a written pact that I made with him, to bring me wealth to the extent that I would never be able to spend it, that I would have more money than I can expend. And that seemed like a far reach for me at that point. I mean, at that point, 5 years ago, I was paycheck to paycheck. I was working as a carpet cleaner at the time, just trying to make my ends meet. Within 6 months to a year, I would say, after performing that ritual, I have had exactly what I asked for. That up to this point, I'll watch my bank account and I can watch the figures go up and down, but I'm just not capable of spending more money than comes in. And I mean, these rituals are not difficult. They're not, and it didn't require me giving my eternal soul to this demon. It didn't require me performing any kind of human sacrifice to this demon. It did require me being open to the opportunities that would come, as well as being willing to do the work. This is one of the big things. A lot of people want to do a spell for money, and then they want to sit at home and play on their Xbox while the money comes in. Well, it doesn't work that way. You perform the ritual, and then the opportunities open up for you, and then you can take those opportunities and do the hard work that's necessary, and you find that it pays off.
So that was a pact with the demon?
Absolutely.
So people can make pacts. That was my other question to you. So then you can make a pact with the demon. That's scary to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's it probably should be. I mean, it's not something to take lightly. You can not only can you make pacts with demons, you can make pacts with angels. People make pacts with God constantly. At the point of your baptism, you are making a pact with forces that you don't even understand. When you go through any of these rites of passage in any religion, you are making pacts. When you call forth a spirit, you are making basically an illicit pact. And so you have two sorts of pacts that are made. You have an explicit pact, in which you call forth the spirit. You say, "Hey, I'll give you this, and I'll do these things if you do these things for me." And that's an explicit pact. Usually, that's written and then signed in your blood. And then the imprint of the spirit's sign or its signature appears on the page astrally. You'll see that appear on the page, and then you trace it over. And then the pact is signed and sealed, and you get what you've asked for, and you better deliver on what you said you're going to deliver on. But then you also have less explicit pacts, more assumed pacts, that every time you come in contact with the spirit, you're making a pact of almost an agreement of interaction. Just like when I leave my house and I go into society, I'm making pacts with people constantly. When I drive my car, I am making a numerous amounts of pacts with people. I am going to stop at this red light and let you go. And so it's very similar with working with spirits and working with these astral entities, is that you are making agreements with them as you go, even just to facilitate the agreement itself.
If you make a pact with a demon, does that mean they come forth to you and they want favors from you?
If you're going about it unwisely, then yeah. A lot of people, if you look at some of the classical pacts, that the idea is, hey demon, you're going to bring me this amount of gold, and you're going to bring me these women, and you're going to make these things happen for me, and then come to me and tell me what you want later on. Now, that's a silly way to make a pact. That's a foolish way to make a pact. The pact should be made, first of all, through multiple negotiations. So, I have a few different attorneys that work for me, and before I sign my name on any document, we go over that document multiple times. We send it back for revisions until all parties are in agreement with what needs to be going on with this agreement. Those are pacts. Now, with a spirit, I would call it forth. For instance, Lucifuge, and I've made a pact with Azazel as well. And a very similar thing happened where I came and I said, "Hey, I want to make a pact with you. I want this and this and this and this, and here's what I'm willing to offer." And I got the answer, well, what you're offering isn't worthwhile, and we need something more, or we need more out of you, or even what you're asking for isn't really the fullness of what we can give you, so revise it. And so then I'll go back, revise the pact, until I'm finally, finally have a complete version, much like a contract I would draw up with the aid of my attorneys, that outlines everything that I'm going to get, everything that I'm going to give. It's a contract of mutual benefit. And if it's not of mutual benefit, then, well, you don't sign the pact. You don't want the demon showing up at some point and saying, "Ha-ha, now I've got you." And most of the time, that's not going to happen. There's been a huge misunderstanding about what demons are. Mm-hmm. That it's understood in specifically Western culture, because of the Abrahamic influence in Western culture, that angels are good, they're working for God, demons are bad, they're working for the devil, and it's this dualistic split. And that's not true at all. If you look back into the archaeological record, you can see that what are now called demons were the first gods ever worshipped on this planet. Long before Yahweh was ever worshipped, or Jehovah, or any of the names that he's gone by. And which, by the way, that god itself was an amalgamation of all of these other pagan gods. But that the very earliest gods worshipped later on became known as demons, because when one culture either conquers or subsumes another culture, the first two things they do is they change their religion and they change their language. Now, if you can change the words that people speak, you can change the things that they think. Words do have immense power, and if you can change their gods into demons, wow! I mean, you've got them completely into your paradigm, and that's exactly what's happened. And so, what we're calling demons, for instance, Lucifuge Rovakeo, supposedly the prime minister of hell, supposedly this super evil guy. Well, you can trace him back to having taken the form of entities like Thoth from Egypt or Ningazida from Samaria, which were still dark, obscure, and very interesting characters, but not these impish demons that are doing the will of the devil. And so when you're working with these demons, what we're calling demons, you're actually working with some of the most ancient gods in existence, and they're not trying to lie to you and persuade you to do things that would otherwise be out of your character. They're not trying to catch you in some trick so you can go to hell. These ancient gods are actually trying to fulfill their original purpose, which is to aid in the evolution of the human being and the human species.
I also saw that you said you have discovered an ancient demonic language. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've discovered should maybe be better put as stumbled upon. In dealing with these ancient forces, they have at times said very, very clearly, "This is important, write this down," and then they start speaking what seems to be gibberish. And I thought it was gibberish for quite some time, but I would write it down nonetheless. This is one of the things that is a gift, I guess, of mine, is that I listen and I follow through just enough to prove or disprove. Most people, when they receive a message from something other than a physical source, they're automatically going to shut the door and say, well, that obviously can't be real. I've never done that. In my entire life, I've never done that. And so I get the message and I say, well, let me suspend my criticism and just follow this through and see where it goes. And so I've written down the phonetic language that they've given me, being incantations that I can repeat that are extraordinarily powerful. And then they've also given me symbols that do align with some of those phonetic explanations. Now, once again, for years, probably about a decade, I assumed that maybe I was crazy and just making all this up, or maybe these spirits were just feeding me something to keep me interested while they were working something else in the shadows. But then I had somebody who was actually a linguistic expert that contacted me and said, look, what you actually have here is not It's not gibberish. It's not your imagination. It's actually ancient Nabatean. And I well, okay, what does that mean? Well, Nabateans were some of the first people to first start trading and traveling throughout the world. And as they traveled and traded, they collected not only information about these other cultures, but also collected their beliefs, their religious systems, and their magical systems, and they started employing these themselves. So these were some of the very first eclectic sorcerers, and the language that they used later became Aramaic, which is the language of the New Testament, interestingly enough, the language that Jesus supposedly used in all of his rites and all of his communications. Now, this ancient form of Nabatean was being spoken to me. I'd never even heard of the term Nabatean until 10 years after receiving this information from these spirits. So yeah, I've definitely stumbled on some very interesting phrases. It would be an overreach for me to say that I've discovered an entire language, because I've only discovered a few phrases, and I'm not a linguistics expert. I'm not. I don't have a Rosetta Stone that's able to help me translate any of this. I've got the internet, which is a very, very valuable tool, and I've got other people who help me kind of put the pieces together. But aside from that, once again, I'm hearing what the spirits are telling me, and I'm following it through just enough to see and find out if there's any value to it. And what I have seen is that there is extraordinary value to it, and that it can be traced back to some sort of validation. This is one of the big differentiating points between an insane person and a prophet, because really there seems to be quite a bit of an overlap between crazy and insightful. Mm-hmm. And that differentiating point is the validation of the thing. And this is why specifically sorcery is so important, because sorcery or magic is aimed at creating an end result in this world that you can observe, that you can record, and that you can rely on in order to tell you whether or not your ritual worked. I mean, if you perform a ritual for money and the money never comes, well, that tells you your magic didn't work, and you need to refine your process, or you need to revisit exactly what you did, or somehow rework the whole thing, because the end result that you wanted didn't come to you. If you're performing more religious types of ceremonies, there's no real feedback. Performing sorcery for end results does give you that feedback loop that tells you whether or not you're actually succeeding, in which case this becomes a science.
You know, I don't know if you do this, but there are people out there that if you pay them, they will put a curse or do a spell on the person that you want to have this done to. What would happen to... Okay, so is there repercussions for the person asking for the curse and the person doing the curse?
Well, once again, the repercussions are always going to be natural. So here's one of my favorite examples of this. You perform a love spell on somebody, and that person is going to feel like they love you intensely. That feeling is going to fade. Because you're pushing your will upon somebody else's will against their natural impulse, against their natural desire. Their natural state is eventually going to take back over and say, wait a minute, I don't like this guy. Now, at that point, if you've done this to somebody that you have any kind of relationship or friendship with, you can pretty much guarantee that friendship or relationship is going to be over. Those are the natural repercussions. Now, the flip side of that is that if their natural will does not override that, and they stay under your spell, then you have a stalker on your hands. And I've had this occur to me with one of the last love spells that I ever performed, which was years ago, and at that point I kind of swore off ever doing that again, because this, I performed a love spell, and had my fun with the girl, and it was never never meant for it to be anything more serious than that. And then when I told her that it was over and we had to go our separate ways, she committed suicide.
Oh,
now,
no.
That is a natural repercussion, and that weighs on me very heavily. The things that she could do with her life, the things that she could have done, and the people she could have influenced, that's something that I have to live with. These are the natural repercussions. The karma aspect it doesn't come back and hit you threefold, and all of a sudden that you have just misfortunes in your life. But there are natural cause. There's a natural cause and effect. I have known sorcerers who will put love spells on women, and then they will literally become stalkers. They won't leave them alone. They'll come pounding on their door and waking up their family all hours of the night. And eventually they have to file, stalking injunctions and restraining orders against these women. But they've asked for that, quite literally. There are people who summon forth succubus or incubus entities to fulfill their sexual desires, and then they can't get rid of them, or that they find out that their sexual desires are maybe a bit more freaky than what they were originally aware of, and those succubus or incubus figures are still trying to play that out. And so you do have to be very careful with magic in that you do get what you ask for, but not necessarily in the way of that you're going to have some karmic retribution for what you do, but that there are natural cause and that there's a natural cause and effect. I've used magic in previous employment instances that I've had, different companies that I've worked for, where I wanted a specific job. I wanted to become the kind of lead manager of the area that I was working in. I had a really, really great career doing cabinetry and decorative finish, and I wanted my boss's job. So I performed rituals to get my boss's job, and sure enough, within a couple of weeks, I get a promotion to my boss's job. He's demoted, and then he's working for me, and it made my working relationship with him awkward. Awkward would be an understatement. And so there was a natural repercussion once again with that. Not a karmic or universal balance that occurred there, but a natural repercussion that I just cost this guy his position. His family now has to suffer because of it, and now I've got to deal with somebody that hates me because I just took his job. So these are all natural repercussions. Obviously, these are things that need to be taken into consideration. In that case, that's not something that I regret because, I did a better job of it than he did. But there is always, not necessarily that there's always a price to pay, but that the world, we are living in a world of cause and effect, and so you do have to kind of follow the rabbit down the hole just a bit to kind of see exactly what your spells and rituals are going to eventually manifest for you.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I'd asked you about the pact with the devil, you said you did not have to sell your soul to the devil. Now, there is a saying that people sell their soul to the devil. They, singers, movie stars, to gain fame and fortune. Is it possible, on the other end, to sell your soul to the devil, and then what happens to them? What happens to their soul?
Well, it's possible to make that kind of arrangement, and now, here's something that's really cool, is that you don't have to wait until you die to find out what happens on the other side. Through techniques of astral projection and then the advanced techniques that I teach of soul travel, you can go to the afterworld, the afterlife, before you die, and then you can come back to your body with all of the lessons and all of the things that you've collected. Now, in doing that, I've seen that the first few stages of the afterlife are heavily reliant on the individual's beliefs. And so basically you go from the physical plane into the astral plane. And in the astral plane, this is a plane of energy and spirit, and in this plane there are a lot of different kingdoms and areas. You can find every heaven and every hell residing on the astral plane. And if you believe that you're going to go to one place or another, that's automatically where you're going to end up. That's just the first level of this afterlife experience. After that, you've got the causal plane, the mental plane. You have an abyss that has to be crossed over before you get to the higher God planes. There is a central source of light and creation that does exist, and it basically recycles everything. And so everything gets pulled up. The physical plane is kind of at the outskirts. It's the furthest away from the source, and everything is being pulled back in towards the source and then recycled as pure energy. We would call this reincarnation. And so if you believe that you've made a pact with the devil and that he is going to take your soul, then after you die, you automatically are going to probably go to whatever hell that you have imagined, because anything that you imagine does exist on the astral plane, especially if it's imagined with a lot of people having a similar imagination or a similar vision of this thing, and then creating a religion around it, saying prayers to it, and all of that. It becomes a very, very real place. And so, yeah, you would end up there until at some point your own evolution leads you out of that to the next plane of existence. That's the thing, is this whole becoming a living God thing it's happening regardless of whether or not you're performing magic. We're all in a state of ascent at all times, in all phases of our existence, whether we're alive or dead or sitting on the sofa watching TV. We are in a state of ascent. And so at some point, that person is going to be lifted out of that. Now, the signing of a pact, or the making of a pact with a demon or ancient god or any other being, weighs heavily, or is weighed heavily on not necessarily your belief in it, although belief is a prime ingredient, but how much of your will you put into that. So let's say you're a musician and you're a good musician, but you want to have international fame and recognition, and you call forth this spirit. Once again, even the fact that you've called forth a spirit completely alters your observation of reality. You were in an empty room, and then all of a sudden you're in a room and in really a crossroads between the worlds, looking at this spirit that shouldn't exist, asking it for things that shouldn't be able to be delivered. You're able to really mold your reality at that point. And so then you start asking that spirit to do things for you, and coming up with this exchange process. And you're able to alter your reality pretty intensely. And so yeah, a lot of musicians and a lot of artists have made these pacts. I think that the term "sell your soul" is overused, because, well, first of all, your soul, being your Atman, which is the inner divine light within you, it can't be bought or sold. Your consciousness can be tricked or trapped by its own self into certain modes of thinking. For instance, most people living on this planet are trapped, imprisoned in their own mindset of the way things are and the way things should be, and can't see beyond that. And so similar things would happen after death as well, that they would be trapped in their own prison until eventually their own evolution leads them up out of that.
Because I did see a video on YouTube that Bob Dylan actually admitted that he sold his soul to the devil.
Oh, sure, yeah, no, Bob Dylan, and I know that Jimmy Page was a huge follower of Aleister Crowley. The list goes on and on and on, and I mean, to the point that a lot of people could look to just about any major celebrity and say, well, the fact that Jay-Z supposedly is a third degree master mason, a lot of people would consider that he has sold his soul to Lucifer in order to get his fame. Well, he's part of a fraternal organization that does charity work and likes to sit around and drink and wear weird clothing. I don't know that it means he sold his soul, but once again, that term I sold my soul is overused quite a bit because once again, your soul's not really up for sale. It belongs to nobody but you and to the eternal, and so you can make these bargains and you can end up with some amazing things from doing these pacts. But I'll tell you what, if any of these musicians, if they actually did sell their soul to the devil and just say, hey, upon my death, you get my soul and I'll get fame and fortune, I'll tell you what, if they actually approach this with the proper wisdom and the proper mindset, they could have achieved much, much more. And a lot of them have. You can actually see, at this point, it's become undeniable to me that the occult is everywhere. That doctors, lawyers, the people working at Home Depot that I'll go to are wearing pentagram necklaces and are recognizing me on the streets and letting me know what a good job I'm doing in disseminating this information. And so magic is everywhere. Sorcery is everywhere. People are waking up to this and practicing this in a major, major way, and it's benefiting their lives in a major way. There was a definite counterculture movement, specifically in the 60s and 70s, to doing everything that your parents told you not to do. So, if you're supposed to go to church, well, then you dedicate yourself to Satan, or you start attending the Church of Satan gatherings, or if they tell you you're not to do drugs, obviously you go do acid at Woodstock. You had a lot of that in the 60s and 70s for sure. Now, what's interesting is that I've recently caught on to a 40-year cycle. There is a 40-year cycle that occurs where the counterculture movement ramps up over and over and over again, and we are at that 40-year cycle that we saw in the 70s. Right now, we're in the middle of a countercultural revolution that is massive, and so we're going to see some of the same, but the wisdom I think that's been gained in the past 40 years is equally intense. That no longer are people really concerned with selling their soul to the devil, because the information's out there that that's not really the way to go. In a large part due to the work that myself and other occultists have done in bringing this information to light, simply selling your soul to the devil's not the best way to go when you can call forth a demon or angel or elemental spirit or planetary spirit and work with it in achieving your goals, and it helps you really without you having to give up your soul or your firstborn child or anything like that. One of the things to clarify is that these spirits, although they can appear to us when we summon them in physical form, they appear with bodies, that's not their true state. Their true state is energy, much like electricity. Now, electricity, wants to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to move. And so you plug in your refrigerator into the wall, the electricity that's going through your wall wants to move. And so when you call forth the spirit, the exact same thing is happening. That energy wants to move, it wants to act, it wants to do something. And so what you're doing is you're opening up a gateway for that to come through and to do something. As the magician, your job is to direct that and funnel it towards a specific goal.
Mm-hmm. Now, Eric, you are part of a cult. Do you practice Satanism?
No, I mean, that's a big, broad question. Okay, so I wear, I'm not sure if you can even see this on camera, but
yes,
So I wear that, and I don't wear it all the time, but I wear it a lot of the time. And and it is symbolic of the adversarial force. It's symbolic of black magic, for sure. Satan, as a Christian idea, or even as a Jewish idea, is not really interesting to me. It's actually a pretty washed out idea of much more ancient forms and figures of the adversarial entity. I have in the past considered myself a Satanist and have kneeled before Satan and have worshipped him, and have found that didn't get me very far. In fact, that's the exact point where my life was plummeting. That I found myself into intense drug addiction, sex addiction. That I lost just about every physical possession that I owned, and I was homeless. That Satan didn't do much for me, because that's not what Satan does. Satan, in the Christian and Judaic ideology, is not necessarily a builder of things. And in my approach, I always try to go back as far as I can in time. Satan is a very, very new character. I mean, very new. And so I go back further in time, even beyond the Egyptians, more to the Sumerians, and then even beyond the Sumerians into the Bronze Age, and even into the Stone Age, the monolithic structures and monolithic creators, and look at what they were doing and who they were worshiping, and that is a much more pure form of these same forces. And so no, at this point, I don't worship Satan. I don't even acknowledge Satan by that name or form as being something worth my time. But to the outsider, I would appear to be very much a Satanist. But there are a lot of distinctions to make there, where Satan is a very, very limited entity that exists in a very limited paradigm.
We have a lot of questions for you, and before we go there, I just want to ask again about black magic and what does that encompass. Now, do you call yourself a magician as well?
You know, one of the problems that I've been coming up against in my work, you know, like I said earlier, when one culture subsumes or conquers another, that they need to change the language. The culture that I am embedded in is a culture that does not yet exist. I exist within a culture that is still being formed. And a new language needs to be created for this culture, because English or any other language that exists on this planet does not have the capacity to convey the ideas that the culture of the future does contain. And so the term magician, I don't like to use so much anymore. Even the term magic I don't like to use so much anymore. It is mixed in with illusionism and performing card tricks.
Right.
It's also mixed in with Thelemites and Golden Dawn folks wearing white robes and doing these vibrations of God names, etc. And so, you know, I've gone back a little further in time to just using the word sorcerer as much as I can. The word sorcerer is a very powerful word, and you could look into the etymology of that. You can actually learn a lot by looking at the etymology of words. And so I'll use the word sorcerer, but I do summarize my practice as black magic. And so you've asked for kind of clarification on that.
Right.
Black magic is magic without limitation, meaning that the only person that tells you how you can use your sorcery is you.
Okay. And I have one other question, because you're a friend of Winter Lake, and we talked a little bit about the Book of Gosha. Now, also Phil Saracusa, who has been on my show, had what he called was the original, the first publication of the Book of Gosha. And his story goes that he uses that Book of Gosha to perform, I guess, rituals with it. And with that Book of Gosha that he used, he did harm to someone or some people through that book. And supposedly the original book of Gosha is supposed to be very, very powerful and dangerous. What can you tell us about the book of Gosha? Do you know anything about it, Eric?
Look, I do know about it, and I'll tell you what, I've got a huge bookcase in my living room, and it is filled with grimoires. All of them, and the Book of Gosha is definitely amongst them. At least one permutation of the Book of Gosha, and each of them are said to be the most dangerous book. Once again, you even cited my book, the Spider and Green Butterfly, as the most dangerous book out there. The Book of Gosha, in my opinion, it falls under the same category as just about every other grimoire. Now, just to clarify terms, a grimoire is a book of spells or a book of summoning forth spirits. Now, each of these books has its own system that it works with. Most of these have been edited through the lens of Judeo-Christian perception. Book of Gosha, less so, but in each of these books, just as you can see in each of the scriptural or canon works of various religions, that there's information that's been hidden in dogma. Exact same thing with Book of Gosha, as well as just about any other grimoire that you'll find out there. If you can get the name of a spirit or the steps of a ritual to perform, then you can take out all of the dogma, take out the gods, take out the prayers for repentance and forgiveness and this and that and the other, and you'll be left with the gold of the matter. And then my whole work has been digging through a lot of this manure in order to find that 1% of gold, because it is only about 1% in each of these books. And so the Book of Gosha has that 1%, as well as a lot of these other grimoires. These are filled with amazing information that has been completely obscured by dogma. And the Book of Gosha is not so different. Mm-hmm. And so, you can perform some amazing things from that, as well as from the greater, because the Book of Gosha would be called the Lesser Key of Solomon, right. But the Greater Key of Solomon, the Necronomicon, the Black Pullet, the list goes on and on and on, and each of these is very, very potent. But you have to be able to divorce the dogma from the magical practice. This is the crux of my work, is to dissect all of that, get rid of the dogma, and deliver the step-by-step system. See, this is the thing with magic, is that with true sorcery, it is a step-by-step process. And all that you need to do is plug yourself into that system, and it works. It works reliably every time, once you plug yourself into the system with the dogma out of the way.
Mm-hmm. What is the most powerful magic spell you've performed?
That's a big question. The most powerful magical spell I performed. I've done some powerful spells to be able to create some amazing changes in the world around me, in my life, sometimes in the headlines in the news of world events. I've been able to do some amazing things, but I would have to say, and it wasn't just necessarily a spell, but it was a working that I did with Ningazida. Ningazida is the first serpent god ever worshipped on this planet, and we've all seen the caduceus, the two serpents wrapped around a pole. This has become the symbol that we see on ambulances and in any kind of medical anything medical is going to have this symbol on it, and ancient Sumerian serpent entity. And so I created this idol for Ningazida. Rather than using a symbol that I drew on paper, I took a piece of stone and I carved it into this idol of a twin serpent circling around itself. And I put this idol on a stand, and I performed an invocation that filled that idol with the god. So the idol became the house of that ancient god. And then I knelt before it and worshipped it. And the things that it revealed to me and the doorways that it opened for me have completely changed my life in amazing ways and in deep ways. Not necessarily, I mean, I have had some physical benefits from that for sure. My daily life has definitely improved because of that. But once again, my goal is evolution. So if we use sorcery to make things happen in the world around us, that's great. That's awesome. Get yourself more money. If you're having relationship troubles, you can use magic to heal your relationship. You can use magic to bring a lover to you. You can use magic to destroy your enemies. Once again, even though I might advise against that, you can do that. All of these are just experiments in using our power, and the end result of these experiments is our evolution, that we're learning that we truly are gods here in the flesh.
Now, earlier you had said it's on particularly a love spell that eventually that dissipates, that it doesn't stay together. So why doesn't that stick? And the other spells that you do they dissipate as well, or are they permanent? Do they stick?
Well, and once again, you have a two-way split there, where you have most of the time it doesn't stick because okay, so excuse me, if a girl likes me, has any interest in me at all, I can go up and say, hey, let me get your number. Let's get together and do something fun together. All right, cool. It's all good. Now, if that were the case, I wouldn't need to perform a love spell. So the love spell would be performed on someone who otherwise would have no interest in me. And so I'm forcing my will upon her in order to make her feel something that is not in accordance with her desire and her will. Now, there's going to be a natural pushback. Just like if you go to a used car salesman and they're really trying to sell you this car and they're really pushing it, you can feel it and you go, I'm not going to buy that car. Now, it's the exact same thing that they'll fall into it and they'll find themselves attracted to you, and often they'll initiate contact and they'll come and ask for your number, and but pretty quickly their own internal self keeps coming up and boiling up and saying, no, this is not what you want. Each of us, I mean, whether or not you're practicing magic, you are a divine being with immense power. Whether or not you're practicing magic, whether or not you are involved in spirituality at all, you are a divine being with immense power. And so this is one divine being trying to assert its will over another divine being. And so she is eventually going to push back against that with her own internal will, her own internal knowledge of what she wants in her life. She's going to push back against that and resume her original state or her natural impulse. Most of the time. Sometimes not. Sometimes for people who are easily susceptible or are weaker of will, that you will be able to completely override them. And so they're just naturally going to, most people are naturally going to come back to their senses. The difficult thing with that is, as the magician, in the process of the couple of weeks that it takes for them to come back to their senses, a lot of times you find that you've fallen in love with the person that you put the spell on. And then the spell wears off and they say, what the hell am I doing with you? And they go their own way and you're stuck brokenhearted. Once again, natural cause and effect, not karma. Now, with other spells, so let's say for money, if I perform a ritual for money, that money comes to me, and then I can spend that money on whatever I want. I can invest it on whatever I want. The money itself has no natural will, and so it's going to stick. One of the most difficult rituals to perform successfully is to kill another person using baneful magic, because you have to override their will to survive. Now, that is absolutely the strongest instinct that a human being, or really any mammal, has, is the will to survive. And so your desire and will for them to die has to be stronger, applied in a greater force and a greater consistency to override their will to remain alive. Not necessarily that they will take their life, but that their organs start to fail, or they start to engage in risky behavior. Whatever the case, that is extraordinarily difficult, because you are dealing with, once again, one divine being trying to overwhelm the will of another divine being. And so whenever you're trying to control or manipulate another person, you're going to find that there is pushback there. That the other person does have their own will, and they do have their own power to push back against. Now, with the whole subject of whether or not this dangerous information should be released, it definitely should, and it should be released and accepted by the masses. In my opinion, what I'm teaching now through Become a Living God and through all the other things that I do, it ought to be taught in elementary school to children. This ought to be our core fundamental practice. Everybody needs to be armed with this power, because I'm using it, and a lot of other people on this planet are using it in order to control and manipulate others. Now, if we're all armed with the same power and the same knowledge, your ability to push back against the programming and against the brainwashing is going to be intense. And this is one reason why occult orders have been banned and have been infiltrated by government systems for quite some time. So that if you are trying to overwhelm another person's natural will with something that they normally wouldn't want to do, you can expect that at some point they're going to resume their natural course. If you can make the best of it, let's say, once again, in a love spell, if in the time of the couple weeks before the spell starts to wear off, that you can demonstrate your worthiness as a lover to them, then there's a chance that real love could blossom from that. Or same thing with business relationships, that you motivate somebody through magic to get into a business relationship with you, and then it becomes profitable, well, they might stay with you. And so the same thing is, but what I like to do, and what I like to advise my clients to do, is to take other people out of the equation. And so if you want love in your life, don't target a specific person, because that's usually coming from some sort of psychosis that you're obsessed with that person. Just target yourself and your love, and then you have no other person that you're pushing against to push back. That you are fully accepting the love and the intimacy that you desire in your life, and it's going to just flood upon you. As soon as you start to try to assert your will against another person to do something that they naturally normally would not do, you're going to run into some conflict, and you really are going to end up probably in a worse state than you started.
Okay. Before we start questions, I want to show everyone E.A.KOETTING, Eric, is the author of over 8 books. He is a black magic cultist. I'm showing their website. It's www.becomealiving.god.com. Now, all of Eric's books can be purchased, I believe, on Amazon.com.
Yeah, a lot of my books can be purchased on Amazon. I'm going to tell you something, though. A lot of my books are going to be purchased at an extremely high price on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, you go to eBay, you go to any of these sites that are selling my books third hand, you're going to be paying sometimes thousands of dollars.
I saw that. I saw that. Oh my goodness! Look at the price of these books.
Well, and that's something that I saw myself. I'm going to be honest with you. I would never, ever, ever pay $1,000 for a book. I don't care what the book is. I would not do that. My I don't know. Maybe my value of my money is a little too much for me. I don't know, but I wouldn't pay that price. And so through Become a Living God, we've got ebooks that you can buy for. I'm not even sure. I think it's like right around $20 for an ebook. And these are high quality, high resolution ebooks that you can download right to your Kindle, your phone, your computer, and read there. We also are in the process of working through different books like we just did with the Spider and Green Butterfly to reprint these, make these available at affordable prices. So really, I mean, if you want to get your hands on my books, which I encourage you to, they're great books, go to becomealiving.com and check out my books there. You can get them on ebooks. Some of them you'll be able to get still in physical format. If you want to pay $1,000 or more for the physical book, you can go ahead and do that. I mean, that's up to you. But really, I do see that I'll probably be reprinting just about everything that I've written because the information is so important. Once again, everybody needs this. Everybody needs to be armed with the knowledge and the power of their own godhood.
And you also have a YouTube channel, E.A.KOETTING. So, and it's filled with informational videos, live rituals. Very interesting. All right, so Eric, I'm going to put you on full screen. And I'm going to start asking you the questions from the viewers. All right. Number 1, Venter Storm wants to know, when creating a pact with these gods, what do they want in return? Like, if you give me money, what do you want in return?
So, when I made a pact with the ancient god / demon Azazel, I had a list. I had a list of several things that I wanted from him. The flow of prosperity into my life was one of them. I wanted to have all of the knowledge and the power of a demonic king, which he's considered to be a demonic king, and I wanted that. There were several things that I wanted, and what he wanted from me was that for 90 days that I devote myself to him, for a 90-day period, that I don't call on any other gods other than the ones that he maybe would suggest or recommend to me, any entities that existed under his dominion, and that I would devote myself to his studies, that I would summon him forth once a day to speak with him and to learn from him, and that the things that he instructed me to do, that I would do. Now, I mean, on one hand, okay, this sounds like a cool pact. Like, he's not asking for too much. He's not asking for my soul. He's not asking for my firstborn child. But he is asking for my obedience. Now, what if one of the things he asked me to do is a horrific thing? Well, then I'm going to have to figure out a way to terminate this pact. There is a point of having to trust the entity you're making a pact with. When you make a pact with an entity, you have to consider this to be a binding arrangement, like a marriage or like a business contract. Okay, so I am never, ever, ever going to enter into a business contract with somebody that I don't trust. I don't care what they put on the paper. I don't care how many lawyers look at it and verify it. If I don't trust that person, I'm not signing the contract. Same thing with making agreements with spirits. If you don't have a relationship with them and you don't trust them, do not work with them. Do not sign the pact with them. You can work with them. You can call them. You can develop that relationship, but treat it like, and especially if it's going to be a pact that's going to benefit you for the rest of your life, you're going to have a connection with that spirit for the rest of your life. Treat it like a marriage. This is a marriage to a spirit that is going to endure for quite some time, if not the rest of your life. You need to know that you can trust this spirit to have your best interest in heart, and if you don't have that trust, don't make the pact.
Okay.
Now,
go ahead.
With that, as Azazel told me these things that I needed to do, what he was actually doing is he was setting me up for clearing the way for him to actually teach me. So he told me, basically the same commandment that Jehovah gave to Moses: have no other gods before me. Don't call other spirits besides me for this 90 days. Now, the reason for that is if you're going to, let's say you're studying a very specific course of study, and your professor says, look, I don't want you studying what I'm teaching you, while at the same time you're studying what 6 other people are teaching you. I want you to focus wholly on what I'm teaching you. And that's exactly what he was saying. And so for my pact with Azazel, it was very much geared towards learning from him and putting myself as his disciple, as his student. Now with Lucifuge was an interesting experience, because he taught me quite a bit about the dynamics of making pacts. His demand from me is that I would establish, and this is worded very symbolically, that I would establish 9 gateways, 9 permanent gateways, upon 9 continents of power, through which the ancient gods could pass from their world into ours freely. And now, this didn't make any sense to me at the time, and I'm still working out the details of it. But when he says, portals or gateways, we're talking about people. We become the gateways of the spirits as we evoke them, as we channel them, as we do the works that we do with them. We become their gateways. The continents are their bodies. And so he's basically saying, come up with a connection of 9 people who will come together and call us forth into this world together. I've begun to establish those 9 people. And so that was the big part of what he desired. Now, Beelzebub, I made a pact with Beelzebub, and he had very similar types of things. Now, I called forth a spirit when I was 16, maybe 17 years old. I'm pretty sure I was 16 years old. One of the first spirits that I ever tried to make a pact with. And I said, I want all power. I want to have abilities beyond my imagination. And the spirit said, okay, I'll give you everything you want. And I said, okay, cool, what do you want? And the spirit says, I want you to perform 66 human sacrifices. And so I said, no. I said, I'm not willing to do that, nor do I think that as a 16-year-old I can get away with murdering 66 people and actually get away with it in order to benefit anything from this. So, no, deal's off, sorry, and I walked away from that. So, and that may have been a test from that spirit. Maybe I should have continued communication with it in order to really figure out what it wants, because a lot of times spirits do throw up smoke screens. The first time that I called the demonic King Paimon from the Goetia, he said, he comes to me with a loud voice. I mean, it was like thunder booming down from everywhere, saying, who do you think you are to call me? Now, most people in that situation would say, oh, no, I'm nobody, I'm out of here, I'm gone. And I had to reassert myself and say, it is not I, but it is Adonai who calls you here now. It is not I, but Elohim who commands you. And I had to reach into myself and find that God force and command him. And at that point, he no longer saw me as just an insect trying to use his power, but he saw me as an equal. Mm-hmm. And spirits will do that a lot. If you're in your first negotiations with them, they'll throw up a smoke screen they'll make demands that are unreasonable. And at that point, you just say, look, your demand is unreasonable. You have to see yourself as being on equal or higher ground as the entities you're working with. And I will tell you, as a human being, you are a divine being in a human body. All spirits want what you have. All spirits want to be in this world. That's why they're working with us. That's why they want to be called. That's why they want to take possession of human bodies. They want what we have. We stand on higher ground than any of them. And so in that way, approach them as a god approaching another god, not as a person begging for their help. And if you can do that, then you can negotiate the contract and say, no, what you're offering is ridiculous. I'm not going to do this. Here is what I'm going to do. But it should be a series of negotiations that you're never going to just accept whatever they ask you or tell you to do. That you are going to control the conversation.
All right, another from Kathy Salento. What would a demon consider getting in return for your request? What would seal that contract for them?
And that's kind of a similar question to the previous. That this is something you need to negotiate with them. So I operate from the understanding, and this isn't just a belief, but it's an understanding cultivated through actually working with these beings for most of my life, that they want to help us evolve. We are evolving in our plane of existence. At the same time, they are evolving in their plane of existence. There's coming a point where our evolution, as we try to become more like them, they're trying to become more like us, and there will become a point where the two meet, where the gods and men are the same. And with this, the spirits will, their true desire is to help you evolve. Now, once again, they're going to throw out these smoke screens. They're trying to weed out the people who really aren't ready for true evolution. If you just want a spirit to do something for you, if you just want to call them and tell them what to do, you can do that easily. You don't need to make a pact with them. You can use sigil magic. You can use evocation. And these are all things that I teach you how to do easily. I mean, you can... I will perform sigil magic, which sigil is the symbol of the spirit. You can draw it on a piece of paper, and I'll perform sigil magic while I'm sitting at a stoplight. So, driving my car, light turns red, I sit there for a minute, I gaze at the sigil, I awaken it, I tell the spirit what I want to do, light turns green, I fold the paper up, and I'm on my way. It is that simple. And the spirit always does exactly what I need it to do. Now, so you can do that if you're just looking for a favor here and there from a spirit. You don't need to make a pact with it for little things. What you're making a pact with a spirit for is for something that's going to endure for either your lifetime or for a very long time. You're entering into a very intense relationship with the spirit. So you do kind of have to gauge why you're getting into this. And if your end goal is not evolution of your own self, I would suggest against performing pacts with spirits.
Okay. Another question from King Belial. What spirit do you think is the best to work with to be able to see and hear them better?
Okay. From King Belial. I love the name. That's awesome. King Belial is a king from the Goetia and is an ancient god that I work with very intensely. To answer the question directly, there's a spirit that was discovered by Constantinos, and he recorded this in his book Summoning Spirits, The Magical Art of Evocation. Her name is Mepsital. Now, I would work with Mepsital. I was having some trouble in scrying, which I was using a black mirror in order to see spirits, and I was having some trouble getting real clear images. And so I called on Mepsital. I looked into the mirror, and I thought I could kind of see her face. And I said, hey, I want you to help me see spirits better. And her face came out of the mirror in three-dimensional form. I could see her hair blowing behind her, because there is, when you open doorways between the physical world and the astral world, it's just like opening your front door. There's a pressure system. You can see hair blowing behind. You can see the robes blowing behind them. And she says, how is this? Is this clear enough? Oh, yes, it is. Why, thank you. And that was a breaking point in my ability to communicate and see spirits. But I'm going to add to that calling on Mepsital once, if this is your first evocation, is not going to automatically awaken your vision. That this is something that you work at diligently. The first thing I'm going to suggest for anybody who is serious about this to do is daily meditation. So daily meditation, just light a candle, set it a few feet in front of you, gaze at the candle's flame, and think about nothing but the candle. Now, you're going to have other thoughts pop to mind. You're going to have, what's for dinner, or I wonder what my girlfriend's doing right now, or man, this is a way uncomfortable way to be sitting. Whatever, all of these thoughts are going to pop to mind, and then you just focus on the candle. You can also do mantra. I specifically use the mantra Soham Akal, which means going beyond the highest, going beyond the all. And so you can use this, you can use any number of mantras that help you bring you back into a neutral state. What you're trying to do through this, and I would do this for at least 10 minutes a day, every day. What you're trying to do with this is gain control of your mind and focus it until you are in a state of mental nothingness, until your mind just stops. And then when your mind stops, you can actually start to receive. And so in addition to calling on entities like Mepsital, you need to be doing daily meditation. Magic isn't something that you can just do from time to time when you need it. Magic is something that you need to become. We all, hopefully, brush our teeth every morning and every evening, and if you have a chance, in the middle of the day, but who does? But look at a few minutes on that. You need to start making meditation and sorcery something that is just a part of what you are and what you do through your day. Once you do that, you're going to start finding that all of these things are real. All of these things exist. Another thing, if you're trying to develop your ability to see and hear spirits, I was working once again with a magic mirror, and I had my candles to the side of it, and I thought maybe my candles are interfering with it, and so I started moving them around and putting them in different locations, and I consulted a guide of mine at the time, and I asked him what to do, and he says, well, blow out the candles. And I said, well, that's stupid. If I blow out the candles, how am I going to see anything? He says, well, it's not your physical eyes that see, dummy. It's your third eye. It's your spiritual vision that sees. And so if you want to really develop your spiritual vision, sit in complete darkness and silence and observe the darkness around you, and then start calling spirits into that darkness, and you're going to start seeing and hearing some very, very interesting things.
All right. Next question. And by the way, everybody, the questions I have, I am reading them all to Eric. All right. From Nebet Seta. Is Asmodeus the same as the Egyptian god Ash?
Okay, so Azash, Astoreth, Asmodee has gone through a lot of different cycles, and so I would say yes, that is a permutation. My philosophy on that is, and this is something once again garnered from a lot of years of working with these entities, specifically, is that there was originally a small group of entities that made contact with humans, that they probably influenced our evolution, and that they set us up with this system of spirituality and of sorcery that we could then use. And this small group of spirits then became, their names and images became mutated only a little bit. Once again, if you look at Thoth and you see Thoth and Quetzalcoatl and Ningazida and then Lucifuge, they all have very similar images. They all have extremely similar, if not identical, roles that they play in the spiritual scheme of things. It's the same entity that has appeared in all of these cultures and systems, regardless of the space or time between these cultures. For instance, you look at the Americas, and in the Americas you have Quetzalcoatl that has the exact same characteristics as Thoth and Inkazita in Samaria and Egypt. You also have the exact same characteristics in Celtic and Norse mythology. And so throughout the world, these entities have made themselves known. And then they've just gone through time with taking on multiple names or being given multiple names by different cultures. And so I would say the answer to that is definitely yes. And that if you can trace that far enough back, you're going to end up with a more pure permutation of that entity. You're going to basically have pulled the masks off until you eventually see that entity for what it originally was.
Okay. All right, next question. Tatum, what Loa do you find most intimidating to work with?
Wow. It used to be Ogon. Ogon is the Loa of war. He's the masculine Loa. I didn't work with him much at all when I first worked with Vodon, 7-8 years ago. I actually tried to avoid him as much as I could. He reminded me too much of my father, actually. That's pretty Freudian, but he was just too masculine. He was too aggressive. And then I discovered that in putting together the Haitian Vodon Mastery course, in all of the possessions and interactions I had with the Loa, because I would call them into my body quite often, that he was the strongest, he was the most profound. And I found that he is actually connected to me pretty intensely. And now I have a bead necklace for Ogon, and he is one of my patrons for sure. He was absolutely the most frightening for me, and we will always find that the things that scare us the most are the things that we don't want to accept within ourselves. And so, interestingly, in the process of accepting Ogon, I've also had to accept a lot of my own ultra-masculinity that sometimes borders on being too much.
Okay. Let's see. Applewood. Has he considered stepping away from all organized religion, accepting his divinity, and manifesting on his own while paying attention to spirit and signs?
Oh, yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing for the last several years, actually. I do not affiliate with any organized religion, and what I actually do is I look at organized religion or even organized magical systems. I take once again, I dig through all of their manure, and I find that gold, and then I take that gold and I give it to the world. So that's what I have done. That's what I've been doing. And I mean, that is 100% what Become a Living God has become and is. And so, I do recommend that you check out my YouTube channel, and you'll see that there is no organized religion in there. And in fact, quite the opposite. I am an advocate against organized religion, organized government, and organization as a whole. That we all are very capable of organizing our own lives without any of that.
Okay. Another question from Venter Storm. Is it possible to become one of these gods, demons, angels? If so, how would that happen?
It's possible to invoke and become possessed by any of these entities. And, I mean, to become them is a difficult thing. I mean, you can unite with the person that you love, and even in a metaphysical tantric way, through sexual tantra, you can merge identities with the person you love. But then there is a separation where once again you become yourself and they become themselves, and you're once again separate. You can become possessed, invoking that spirit into yourself over and over and over again, and then it would live through you. But there is a you that is you. This is Atman. This is the super soul, the most I mean, in every religion and system, it is known that there's the greatest self, the most inner self, and that is you. And that is greater than any god, any demon, or any spirit that's ever existed. And so that's what should be embraced. Perform your invocations and evocations, even perform possessions to better know these spirits and better know yourself. But develop the God that you already are. Don't try to mimic the light that the sun gives off. Find your own light.
Okay. From X Group Home Kid, are you saying that we create heaven or hell or the afterlife in mass?
These all exist. I mean, okay, so I performed an experiment where I created an astral temple, and this was part of, as I was working through a system called Chaos Magic, this was a lesson that I learned in Chaos Magic, that you go into your imagination and you create this astral temple. So you create the structure, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and then you put your magical tools where they need to go. You put your altar where you want it to go, and it all looks perfect. It's exactly like you've imagined. And then you create a symbol that's associated with that. And then you give somebody else the symbol, somebody else who knows how to soul travel. And now I did this, and this person, in one of his first soul travel experiences, visited my astral temple and then reported exactly, detail by detail, what tools I had in there, the position of my altar, the color of the walls, and the ceiling and the floor. Now, what I had imagined had become real. Now, it's not that we necessarily just created on the whim, but our belief in our will creates these places. Now, if we take that to another place, because I did that with my astral temple, and it was something that was a really interesting experience. Now, if you take that and multiply it by the millions of people that belong to a religion that believe in a heaven or a hell, that look like a certain way, that do certain things to the individuals that are in there, that have specific reactions, man, you're going to end up with an astral reality that is amazing and or terrifying. You're going to end up with an astral reality that really can't be ignored. And so as you travel the astral plane, you can visit all of these heavens and hells. You can visit even the imaginations of imaginative people who have willed these things into existence. Absolutely. Whether it exists as a real construct really depends on how much you put into it. If you just imagine it just in your imagination as you're daydreaming, it's probably not much. If you daydream it and then you put your will behind it, you see everything exactly as it should be, and then you use magical techniques to breathe life into it, then it's going to be real and concrete, and it's going to exist forever on the astral plane.
Okay. Venture Storm again wants to know, does it have to be a large group of people to believe in heaven, hell, or if a single person believes it, is it enough?
Yeah, and once again, if it does not have to be a large group of people. It can be a single person, but once again, there are magical principles applied. There's the method of once again breathing life into it, that you see it. Here's one of the things is you create it. You create the structure in your mind, in your imagination, and then go away from it for a day or two. Just go about your life, and then come back to it and see if everything is still in its place. If your altar is still where you put your altar, and your staff is still where you put your staff, and the walls haven't changed color, then you're doing pretty good. If everything is kind of rearranged, or the whole thing needs some kind of fine-tuning, then fine-tune it. Do what you need to do to reorganize it in the way that it was. Give it a few days, come back to it. Keep doing that until every time you imagine this place, it is identical and it is exactly as it should be. and then go there, imagine it until it's no longer something that you're simply imagining, but something that you've traveled to, that it's become a real place, that you actually can't tell the difference between your imagination and the real world. Once you reach that point, your astral temple is solidified. So one person can do it. It's going to take a lot more work for one person to do it. If you can get a few more people on board, one of the secret teachings of the supposed Jesus was, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there will I be in the midst of them. Meaning that one person is great, 2 people is better, 3 is better. The more people you can get involved in the same operation with the same goal, the more powerful that becomes. So having a group help you out is good, but you can do this on your own. It's just going to take a little bit more work.
All right, April Fagan, she has 2 questions. Can you share your method on summoning archangels, and have you experienced Lucifer's energy, and what did it feel like?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to take the last question first. Lucifer is a good friend of mine that I don't like to hang out with very often. His energy is illuminating, would be maybe even a mischaracterization. It's a traumatic amount of illumination. Lucifer pushes you further than you care to go, and he shows you, he illuminates your shadows. He makes you deal with your demons in order to find your enlightenment.
Okay. And
so with the summoning angels or archangels, it's the same process as summoning any spirit. So to go through this process really quickly, and once again, this is something I've put together. I think it's like a 12-hour, maybe 15-hour course on this, where I go through step by step how to do this. So check that out. That's going to help you more than my little explanation right here. But first thing, you get yourself into the Theta-gamma sync. All ritual, all ceremony has this built into it as part of the initiatory offerings and prayers. So the invocations, these act as getting you into that Theta-gamma sync, so you can meditate and drop your brainwave state. Once you're in that Theta-gamma sync, you gaze at the sigil of that spirit while having before you incense burning or the offering of a blood sacrifice, the blood cooling and the vapors rising, or I've even known people use fog machines to produce that a dense fog. And so while you've got that going, you gaze at the sigil of the spirit that's drawn on paper in front of you, and you relax your vision. You call out to that spirit over and over. Don't read an invocation from a grimoire, because then once you start reading, you're taking your brainwave state out of theta into beta and alpha state. You're negating the whole thing if you're reading. Bring yourself back down to theta and just call the spirit's name over and over and over, asking it to come to you. And as you do this and you're gazing at the sigil starts to do some interesting things. It disappears from the paper. It rises off the paper. It starts to assume colors that it didn't have before. The symbol comes to life. Once the symbol comes to life, the spirit is there in the room. That is a clear signal you've made contact. And so then you shift your gaze from the sigil up to the smoke, keeping the same sort of relaxed gaze. And you look into the smoke and you will begin to feel the spirit's manifestation in the smoke in front of you. And then you start to see it develop. Or in your first operations, it will be as if you've imagined it. When you rise up from the ritual state, it'll feel like that was all a dream until you've experienced it enough that you realize it's not. But you'll start to see and feel and sense the spirit in there. Now here's what's important is you cannot get an answer unless you ask a question. So don't go to the spirit and just say, hey, thanks for showing up, let's hang out. Go there and say, hey, here's what I need, here's what I want, why am I not getting it, what do I need to do on my end to make this happen, can you help me? Ask the spirit at least 5 questions. The first 2 questions you're going to dismiss as being your imagination. That's the human way of doing things, is saying, that's not real. But then by the third question, you're gonna go, well, wait a minute, I'm getting a lot of information here, and this information I did not have before. And then by the fifth question, there's going to be no doubt in your mind you are in communication with another being that is not just part of your psyche, that you are in communication with a being from the astral plane.
Wow. That's
and once again, that is an extraordinarily condensed version of a teaching that you can get. I mean, I've got Evoking Eternity, a book that you can pick up, Mastering Evocation training course. I mean, I've done all I can to try to teach this in as detailed manner as possible. So this is an extremely condensed version, but that's the basic process.
All right, now from Alicia Franco, how may I be a lifelong Saturnian necromantic practitioner when I'm already dying? How can I personally talk to Dante Abiel and explain my situation? Can you please help me reach Dante Abiel?
That's Dante Abiel. Okay, no, this guy Dante Abiel was once a good friend of mine, and he published a book called Necromantic Sorcery. And in this book, he laid out a system of necromancy that is somewhat good. I can't give it full credit because it does have its flaws. One of the flaws is that it does, when you deal with okay, so if you hang out with drug dealers, you're eventually going to do drugs and probably start selling them. You hang out with child molesters, well, I mean, I'm sorry, you're probably going to eventually molest a child. If you hang out with dead people, you eventually are going to die. And not just eventually like a normal death, but your body is going to decay rapidly. This is something I advised Dante against in interviews that I did with him about this, is that working with the dead as your sole kind of purpose is detrimental. And sure enough, he started having spinal issues. His organs started to fail him, and then he started working through some more intense aspects of demonic magic. And from my understanding, the last I heard from him, he told me that I needed to repent and find God, and that he would no longer be in contact with me. And so there is no way to contact Dante Abiel, and if you did, you would not find the same person that wrote Necromantic Sorcery. You would find somebody who has run the other way in fear for his life. So unfortunately, there's no way I have no way of contacting him. I've tried to contact him. I would like to do some more business with him. I would like to hang out with him. He was once a good friend, but unfortunately, he has gone the other way entirely, and even his own works, he has definitely shunned them entirely.
All right, from Joanne D. Question: who do you think is Zozo?
I get this question so often. This is amazing. I mean, Zozo. Okay, so if you look at the work of Grant, yeah, you look at the work of Crowley, and Zozo's been mentioned over. Zozo even appeared on a Led Zeppelin album. Zozo, in my opinion, is super soul. It is the potentiality of what you can become. Some people might say it's your holy guardian angel in the terms of the Hermeticists and Thelemites, but that's filled with a lot of religious connotation. But I would say that Zozo is the end result of what you could become. In the process of becoming a living God, you will be uncovering Zozo in your own life. I know that's a cryptic answer, but it's a cryptic question.
Okay, the thing is, Darren Evans, who I don't know how many years ago, said that he was in contact with a demon through the Ouija board called Zozo. So they made a movie about Zozo. So supposedly Zozo is a Ouija board demon.
Yeah. First of all, Ouija boards are probably the least accurate way of communicating with spirits. I've used them a lot, and I've got a whole lot of absolute garbage from Ouija boards. If you want to talk to a spirit, once again, I've got course after course and book after book that teaches you exactly how to have. I mean, look, if you and I right now were trying to communicate over an Ouija board, think about how frustrating that conversation would be. Instead, we're having a person-to-person conversation. You can have a person-to-person conversation with spirits. Ouija boards are, in my opinion, utter garbage. The science behind a Ouija board relies on ideometer effect, which is tremors in your hands that are being really focused and funneled through your subconscious mind, meaning that it can be implanted with all sorts of things. So first of all, I wouldn't trust much anything that comes to an Ouija board. It can be an interesting way of having a initial contact with a spirit, but if you want real answers from spirits, call that spirit forth and have a face-to-face conversation with it. Secondly, the fact that Zozo can appear as an external spirit does not also exclude it from being internalized as being the concept of what you can become. So much like Aleister Crowley's idea of the Holy Guardian Angel, that the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel is not necessarily just a conversation with an angelic being outside of you, but it is a meeting of yourself with your highest self. Same thing with Haitian Vaudin. You have the Zétoile. You have what's called the Star of Destiny. It is all that you can become. Now, entwined with that is your Metet, or Master of your Head, which is a Loa that is specific to you, that is everything that you can become. And when you meet with that Loa and unite with it and become possessed with it, you become the fulfillment of all that you can become. It can be external and internal at the same time. In fact, our entire reality is both internal and external at once.
Okay. Let's see. Last question. Let's see. I stopped taking questions. Wait a minute. Okay. Lully Tubi, doesn't putting a spell on someone interfere with their free will? If so, then how is there no karma or repercussions on the person doing the spell?
So, two questions there. The first one is, yes, it is interfering with their free will. Watching television interferes with your free will. You're being bombarded by all sorts of programming there. Drive down the street and you'll see pentagrams everywhere. If you actually pay attention, you will see pentagrams all over the place, marketing advertisements, gas station signs, fast food places, pentagrams everywhere. You're being programmed against your free will constantly. Even the fact that governments force us to pay taxes interferes with our free will. I don't want to give them my money, but I'm being forced to. And so you are interfering with somebody's free will or their natural will by putting a spell on them. Now, why do you suffer no repercussions or karma? Why would you? That assumes that there would be some kind of karmic law that says you would. There is not. Once again, research karma. If you want to research karma, go to the first place that it was ever mentioned, which is the Bhagavad Gita. Read the Bhagavad Gita, and you'll see in there that karma is not cause and effect. It's not a threefold law. Karma is attachment. If you become attached to the things that you're doing, you become attached to anything, that karma begins to develop. People, look, Gerald Gardner, who created this whole pagan and Wiccan movement, he did a great disservice by taking terms like karma, and so did the Theosophists as well, and transferring them into our Western language without any real concept. Karma does not mean that what you put out you get back. Karma doesn't mean anything like that at all. You need to go back and do actual research into where that word came from, which once again is the Bhagavad Gita. read it thoroughly, study it and meditate upon it, and you'll find that karma is not at all what you think it is.
Oh, really? Yeah, because I always thought karma, somebody that's being nasty to you and, doing negative things toward you, that eventually it will come back at them.
Yeah, we have billionaires that bomb other countries and kill children, and they just keep making millions of dollars, and nothing bad happens to them.
Oh, that's too bad.
We have evil that goes on constantly that is not rewarded by evil happening to them. There is no evidence of that law of karma. No evidence at all. There is cause and effect. There is cause and effect for sure, but not a karmic universal principle that says that if you put something bad out, something good is going to come to you. Now, if you believe that, and you put your will into it, and you say, if I do good, good's going to come to me, you're going to see that happen because you have willed that to be.
I understand that.
Same thing that if you say that if you do bad, that bad things are going to happen. You have willed those bad things to happen because that's your belief and that's what you've put into your magical universe to happen. You are the creator of your own reality, and so you create the rules. If karma is a rule that you create for yourself and that you live by, you're going to see its effect. But most people don't. In this world, once again, there's no evidence that that is a universal principle.
Oh gosh, I was just going to ask you a question. Oh, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Oh my gosh. Darn it, I wanted to ask you this question. I forgot. I was listening to you and I forgot what I wanted to say. Darn it. Okay. So there are some people that believe in not that God is the universe. So they'll talk to the universe, they'll look up at the sky, and they'll ask the universe for certain things to go their way, certain good things to go their way. Does that really work? Is asking the universe and believing in it, that the universe is out there to help you?
Well, there are a couple things with that. For one, there's a philosophy called pronoia. So we've all heard of paranoia. Uh-huh. Paranoia is the belief that the universe is conspiring against you. And most people who are paranoid have a lot of evidence that they can show you that the universe is conspiring against them. Now, if you turn that to pronoia, that the universe is conspiring for your benefit, you're going to see a lot of evidence that that's true. Once again, you create your own reality through your thoughts, through your deeply held beliefs and emotions, and through your will. And so now the second part of that is we externalize the God force. One of the biggest things that I've seen in doing this project of Become a Living God is that people have a hard time recognizing their own godhood. And so we externalize it. We externalize it into this father figure or mother figure, into Gaia, the earth, or into idols. Now, you can take a piece of mud, just take a lump of mud and lump it together. Maybe put little pieces of rocks in there for eyes, make it look somewhat human. Stand back and worship it. And if you believe fully that that is your God, and you will that God is going to answer your questions and is going to give you the things that you desire, it will. It's a lump of mud. It didn't exist before you created it. The Nabateans created their gods, or their idols of their gods, as blocks, square blocks of black stone. And then they would worship these as their idols because they knew that God, the God force, was beyond anything that could be put into a figure. And so a stone block was basically as good as they wanted to do, and mathematically very interesting. And so they would worship these and get very good results from it. So yeah, you can externalize the God force however you want. In fact, even in doing rituals of evocation where you're summoning forth spirits and asking them to do something for you, the spirit is drawing power from you. you have just externalized your own God force to this spirit in order to do something for you. It's not the spirit's power that's doing it, it's your power. And this is one of the big things that you learn along the way. This is how these things lead to developing your own godlike powers.
Interesting. Well, Eric, I want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Quite enlightening. You are a very unusual guest. It was awesome to have you on the show. And thanks so much for accepting my invitation to come on the show. It was very pleasurable. I really enjoyed having you on the show.
You know, I mean, thank you for having me on. Thank you for your guests. Thank you for their involvement. I mean, I love that. I love seeing how people are stepping up. I mean, people are really, really becoming active in taking control of their own destiny. And so I love the questions that I've gotten. Thank you, everybody, for asking questions and for putting your thoughts out there, for listening, and for being part of this. I mean, look, we are right in the middle of a worldwide revolution. And everybody who's listening to this, everybody who's participating is participating in this revolution. Things are changing for the better. This world is changing for the better, and you're all part of it. I'm part of it. This show is part of it. And so thank you, not just for having me on, but for doing the work that you do. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And my best wishes to you, and good luck with all your endeavors. And thank you again, Eric. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good night, Eric. Good night. Wow. Well, thanks everybody for hanging in there for the show. I hope you enjoyed it. It sure was it was different tonight, and I really enjoyed listening to him. And he was a suggested guest for my show, so I hope you really enjoyed it, because I did. Everybody, I want to again thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to give the show a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already done so. And you can get show reminders at paranormalzone.tv, and there's a little tab that says show reminders. And so hey, we got another great guest next week. I'm really excited about that show as well. Rocky Elmore. He was a oh my God, so what do they call those? Oh, Royce, help me out. One of those security guards. The border, a security guard for the border, and he wrote a book about his visitations while doing his job out on the desert. Ghosts and monsters and all kinds of things were happening to him. And he has written a book, and he is my guest next week. So everybody, I want to again thank you. Thanks to my mod, Royce. I didn't see any other mods tonight, but again, thank you, Royce, for always being here and helping me out. Always a pleasure to have Royce with us. He keeps the show in line, and he keeps a great chat room for us all. So thank everyone. Everyone, please thank Royce. We had a birthday tonight. It was Jen. Tammy had one as well, I think on the 17th or something. And everybody, so let me do some shout outs. This was an exceptionally longer show. I'm trying to keep the shows down to an hour. But my husband is on the Hornet. They have a big event there, so he won't be home for another couple more hours. So I was able to do, that's right. He was a border control. And it was just Royce tonight. So everybody thank Royce. Always, he does a wonderful job for the show and for the chat room. We have a great chat room, no problems ever. Everybody, I want to say, let's see, and somebody, let's see. Let's see. Chipper has her infection back, and she's on crutches. She got an infection from a scratch of a cat, and yes, I've been there, and it does happen. So let's do some shout outs, okay? So let's start with whoops. Oh, I'm terrible at this, and Royce tells me all the time how to do this, and I'm terrible. And I don't want to screw this up. Shelley Phillips, Tammy Sifford, April Fagan. Royce, I forgot how to do this. Oh, he's going to kill me, and I don't want to screw this up. Let's see. Zoe Small. Oh, there's Chipper Terry. Mama Joe Buffalo. Haven't seen you for a while. David Coffin. Let me see if I can pull this out. Pop out chat. Okay, here we go. Pop out chat. Okay, I hope this works. X Group Home Kid, Shelley Phillips, Miller, I See Lies, Tammy Morrison. Love you guys. I love you guys. Group hug, everybody. Marlena Kalia, Joanne Gray, Ginger Simmons. Yeah, pray for Chipper. That is no fun having a cat scratch infection. Joanne D, Sandra Miller, Kathy Salento. Haven't seen you for a while, Kathy. Nice to see you. Anybody else want to shout out? We had a nice crowd tonight. Anybody else want to shout out? Erie Yeller. B3 Airspace. There's EP Airspace. Cara White from the UK. It's probably what, honey? 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank you for being here. Good night, everybody. Anybody else want to shout out? Amy Siz? I did, Royce, I did that. I did what you said. Authur Shadow. Cherry K. Montalbano, Alicia Franco. I hope you get your help, Alicia. I'm sorry, honey. My love to you. April Walker. Jimmy Cortez. There's our Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy. I hope you're doing okay, honey. Everybody still, Royce needs our prayers, and I don't know how Jimmy's doing as well, but send our love and prayers and positive energy to Royce, to Chipper, to Jimmy, and anybody else. Everybody send your love and prayers and thoughts, okay? Send them your way to our friends in our chat room. And Royce, he has a difficult time and he really needs them. And Jimmy C as well. Love you all. Group hug to everybody. You're so wonderful to always come here. Marlena Alcala. Thank you so much for being here every week. And I love doing the shows for you all. And hope you enjoy them. And you know, I try to bring different guests and topics always to the show. I'm always looking for something different, and things that may not be your typical topic. And I know I got a couple of messages that they weren't going to join the show tonight, and that's fine. You know, it's up to you. Elaine Michael, you Venter Storm, you can come. Andrew Cox, there you are. Angela Rodriguez, thank you. You know, it's up to you. I present, and it's up to you if you want to watch or not. Okay, B. Davidson. Oh, glad you came back. So anyway, I guess anybody else want any more shout outs? Don't forget, have a great weekend. And, oh, good. And I'll see you next Thursday. And I missed my basketball game tonight. Go Warriors. So everybody have a great weekend. And did I miss anybody? I'll see you on Thursday, huh? Come back. Ginger Simmons, come back. Oh, thank you. That's my new hairdo. No more frosting. And it grew. I let my hair grow. You guys I haven't been on the show for over a month, and I decided to let my hair grow. I do. I mean, I love bringing different topics to the show. It's not all about ghosts all the time. Yes, go Warriors. So anyway, thanks again everyone for being here tonight. I really appreciate. Love seeing you all in the chat room. Group hug to everybody. Oh, Seahawks. No. In fact, I think Friday we have a double header. I think the Warriors may be playing Memphis. I'm not sure. So everybody, love you guys. I'm going to go now. See you on Thursday. Have a great weekend. Be safe, Skynet Arbiter. Okay, so everybody, I love you, and I will see you next Thursday. Hope you be all safe, and Thursday, Thursday the 26th, right. Next Thursday's the 26th with Rocky Elmore. Should be a really interesting show. I can't wait to hear what he has to tell us about all the encounters that he had on that job. I've never heard that before. So everybody, love you guys. Good night. Love you. Group hug. See ya. Be safe, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Love you.